So from a complete non-Egyptologist perspective, I love this. I love this idea of bring it down to its simple, rudimentary, foundational level. What's really going on here? And I love that conclusion, to the point where if you look at the three facsimiles, I love the fact that facsimile 1, you've got this square, and in other places, the square, the four corners, and I have no idea if this fits into Egyptian perspective. 4, usually in the scriptures, denotes the earth, mortality, the four corners of the earth, the four quarters of the earth, every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. It often comes to you in 4s when it's referring to earth and mortality. Interesting what's portrayed there, Abraham on an altar. We come to this earth and we experience death. And in this case, he's preserved from it, but he will die. And all of the opposition that's contained in mortality portrayed there. To me, this is an overview, these three facsimiles of our journey back to God, our perspective of who He is, who we are, and what He's doing for us to deliver us from the struggles. Then you get that hypocephalus, the second facsimile, this often the circle, and ironically, this isn't a perfect circle, right? I've been told that it might represent like a rising sun in Egypt. It's slightly elliptical. It's not a perfect circle. The rising of the sun in death and the hypocephalus. You've got your cheat sheet of how to know all of the keywords that you need to progress, added upon, kingdom to kingdom, so to speak. So you get earth represented by the 4 square. You've got usually the circle represents the eye of God or eternities or the heavens. Heaven and earth come together. It's beautiful with the Savior and His infinite atonement being portrayed, which then brings us to what? We die, we raise from the dead, this hypocephalus idea with all those key words, and then what do you get? An enthronement scene in number 3, exaltation, entering into a crowning where you become a king. He's sitting on Pharaoh's throne. It's the symbolism of our journey, of what God is trying to do with us. Everything that Kerry has just said, to me as a layperson with no Egyptian expertise at all, to be able to even see in the pictures that God is telling me a story of He's bringing me through the process of sacrifice and the opposition of the world. He'll give me everything. I can trust Him. He's not going to leave me in the grave. He's not going to leave me hanging with my soul being sent down to be an angel to the devil in hell. I'm going to be given that opportunity to be exalted someday.
Good. And let me maybe even add to that just a little bit, because I love that and I agree with what you're doing. Let's just add to it a little bit. This is what we would call an archetypal journey, a journey that is about our journey to be with God again, right? So let's look in terms of the one of the greatest archetypal journeys, which is in the temple, or we don't talk about our temple so much, but we can talk about the tabernacle or the Temple of Solomon, right? First thing you encounter when you come into the courtyard is an altar, right? Then you have a laver and stuff that makes you clean, and then you come into the holy place. That's the next thing, right? So this is in the, here, let's just draw it this way.
This is the outer courtyard.
Yeah, that's in the courtyard. And then you come to the building itself, the tabernacle or the temple, right? And what you encounter in here, you've got the menorah and showbread and altar of incense. But the idea is that you go up, and in the Temple of Solomon, you did go up. You actually ascended to a higher, this is a different sacred, this is more sacred than this space, all right? Now, you can't even come in here if you haven't made a covenant. Only covenant holders can come in here. And when they come in here, they sacrifice, and symbolically they partake of the sacrifice of the Lord, right? And that and the washing and so on allows them to become more holy, to have jumped orbits, as it were, so that they can come into a holier place, which is symbolic then not of this world, like this stuff is, and this is kind of this world. This is a higher world, right? This is a different world, and we journey through this higher, holier world. And then we get into where the Ark of the Covenant is in the Holy of Holies, but the Ark of the Covenant is thought of as the throne of God, all right? So now let's think in these terms again. In facsimile 1 is an altar. It's about sacrifice and being saved by the power of God. Then you get to this hypocephalus, which is really about a journey, all right, a journey in the afterlife in a holier, a different place. And when you're done with that journey, you come to the enthronement scene, as you said, right? And it's really the same thing. The same story that our temple tells us, and it's interesting because Joseph Smith keeps talking about how this is about the temple, right?
Everything in here, you'll find it in the temple. You'll find it in the temple.
That's because they're both about the same journey, the journey that Christ enables us to make, right? Here's that altar, that emphasis on Christ, the journey that Christ enables us to make, that will bring us jumping orbit to where we can be with and be more like God.